Hello, I'm Fatou Jaiteh and welcome. You're watching The World Today. Coming up on today's edition,
we have reached the total amount of 1.45 billion euro.
Gambia Brussels roundtable donor conference mobilises 1.45 billion euros pledge. Gambia's vice president calls for a rousing welcome for President Barrow and delegation tomorrow.
We need peace back to our country. We need to go and settle and drink waters in our own country, but not to drink the water of other countries. We need other countries to come and visit us.
South Sudan refugee cries as she demand protection from country's leaders. This and more coming on your way on The World Today. I'm Fatou Jaiteh. Welcome back. We start with a release that is said to be from the office of the Vice President Fatoumata Jallow Tambajang, calling for a rousing welcome for President Barrow and delegation, which reads, "The public is hereby informed that the President of the Republic of the Gambia, His Excellency Adama Barrow, will return to the Gambia tomorrow, Friday 25th May 2018 at 5 p.m. by the SN Brussels flight." President Adama Barrow led a high-powered multi-sectoral delegation to Brussels, Belgium, for a European Union EU-funded international roundtable conference to mobilize resources for the implementation of the National Development Plan 2018-2021. The Office of the Vice President is pleased to announce that His Excellency the President has successfully mobilized pledges totaling 1.45 billion euros on Tuesday, 22nd May 2018 from diverse donor countries and international partners. These pledges, when fulfilled, would advance the government's development agenda to move the country from its numerous development constraints emanating from 22 years of dictatorship. The government gives thanks to Allah Almighty in the holy month of Ramadan for His Excellency Adama Barrow's demonstrated leadership and heroic achievements. By way of recognizing this achievement for the Gambia and Gambians, the Vice President calls on all Gambians and well-wishers to come out in good numbers to welcome back His Excellency President Adama Barrow tomorrow, Friday, 25th of May 2018, at the Banjul International Airport and along the streets. A two-day donor conference on the Gambia has just ended at the European Union headquarters in Brussels. The donor roundtable, which brought together some world powers and international donor agencies, was co-chaired by the EU High Representative for Foreign Affairs and Security Policy and Gambian President Adama Barrow. Lamin AFF Dabo has more.
European Union and donor partners have reached a total pledge of 1.45 billion euros for the Gambia for the implementation of the country's 5-year development plan, NDP, at the 2 days international donor conference for the Gambia, which ended at the Belgian city of Brussels.
The new Gambia can and must be a place where every citizen can feel at home and enjoy the same rights. It has to be a reconciled Gambia after decades of suffering, and reconciliation always needs justice. So I'm glad that you sought help from countries that have gone through similar processes, and on this issue as well, we are ready to support your work as the European Union.
Today is very important to us, but the most important thing today is the support that we have been given. The most important thing today, Gambia is not east. The most important thing today is not the money that we are going to generate, but giving the opportunity itself. That is the most important thing.
The conference, which brought together world powers and international organizations, was meant to seek funding for the development of the West African nation which is regaining its 22 years of isolation from the international community.
Last year, we witnessed the first democratic and peaceful change of leadership in the Gambia since its independence, thanks to the resolve of the Gambian people and the new government, together with the support of the international community. The European Union did not waste time and acted quickly to help our Gambian friends with development support.
This international conference is set to support the development priorities of my government, as outlined in the National Development Plan 2018-2021. It demonstrates the global support for the Gambia's return to democratic rule in December 2016. Since then, my government has undertaken bold measures to stabilize the economy, restore public confidence, and strengthen democratic institutions.
President Adama Barrow became Gambia's president in the country's December 1st, 2016 presidential election, ending former President Yahya Jammeh's 22-year fearful rule of the country. Mr. Jammeh's government is accused of corruption and human rights violation throughout his 22 years leadership. For iAfrica TV, Lamin AFF SDA.
Still on the Brussels donor conference, I spoke to the Gambia Permanent Secretary at Ministry of Finance and Economic Affairs, Mr. Lamin Camara, who joined me live from Brussels earlier in today on the Brussels pledges. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
First, I ask your reaction to the EU and donor partners' financial pledge to the Gambia.
Yes, it has been a very joyous day for the Gambians, including the President, after the pledges, because our expectation, actually we are expecting to pull something, but to get above 1.6 billion was really a marvelous performance. We came to the conference with $1.6 billion financing. I mean, for our NDB priority projects, which are about 21. Of course, there are others, 1 to 40. And eventually, we had a pledge of 1.7 billion US dollars. And we saw of the 1.7 billion, about 700 million to 800 million are all grants. This is interesting and it's great, because that is unprecedented as far as the country is concerned. Having a roundtable where we are able to mobilize close to $800 million grant. Because of the pledges, we saw World Bank pledging about 300 million grant. We also saw the EU pledging about 365 million. And African Development Bank pledges about 100 million. And with some other country pledges amounting to our $700 million grants in the grant form. But when it comes to the loan, we saw IDB coming very big. I mean, pledging about $600 million, of which $300 million is for trade financing. Because IDB usually, through their ITFC, the trade financing window, they normally finance the purchase of groundnut in the Gambia. I mean, providing light fuel for NAVEC, providing heavy fuel, light fuel for GNPC and heavy fuel for NAVEC. So that part of it is about 200 million. We also saw Badia. I mean, one of our good traditional Arab creditors also pledging about $200 million. So by and large, we saw Japan, I mean, not pledging, Canada, USA, DFID, and other bilateral countries also coming up to give their support. Some actually pledge, but others no pledge, given their budgetary situation. And we are hopeful that even for those who did not pledge, would eventually join the vanguard.
Okay, what are some of the conditions placed on the financing?
Okay, the conditions for the grants are not much, because usually, I mean, much familiar with grant financing for World Bank, EU, and ADB. Currently, even for World Bank, we have already signed 2 projects out of the grants. They have pledged. We signed a month ago about $30 billion project for education. And 2 days back during the conference, we also signed a $41 million solar project. So we find that if we meet the requirements with good, we can always access the grants. Now, for the loans, the issues are because Gambia is currently, highly indebted country. We would contract the loans, but a lot of care has to be taken in terms of contracting loans that would worsen our debt situation. So we would rather go for more concessional facilities. On the grant side, we should be able to access the funds because, as I said, we are familiar with accessing funds with ADB. Usually, these are institutions that we have programs with. Like for ADB, we have what is called ADF 14 program. And these programs normally are implemented through design of projects and implement those projects. EU too, we have projects to design as per our NDP priorities, as well as the World Bank. Because like I said, for the World Bank, we have even started implementing part of these pledges that they are pledged. Last month, we signed the education project over 30 million for education. And just 2 days back, during this pledging session, we also signed another 41 million out of what they pledged for the energy sector on a solar energy. We also saw with the EU, as part of the pledge that they did, we have already a project that is on the ground. That is the Youth Empowerment Project. So accessing the funds in terms of conditionalities is not very stringent with the grants. For the case of the loans, like I said, because of our debt distress situation, we'll have to be, careful in terms of the terms that have been given for the loan side. By and large, we want to go for highly concessional loan facilities, about 50% grant element.
How did you project Gambia's development shape if this pledge finally got into Gambia's hands?
Well, this is going to take the Gambia to another level. Like you know, this new government started, with the situation where you can say the country was actually bankrupt, given our reserve level, given our economy in totality. So, but with this intervention and pledges, I think we should be able to do a lot of development as far as the country is concerned. Just take, for example, the 700 million grant, and if every dollar or every dollar of the pledge is put into any very meaningful things, we shall see a lot of things coming up in terms of growth level, in terms of infrastructure development, in terms of our social. Because if you look at the NDP itself, it is in 4 categories in terms of financing. We have the governance part, we have the human capital part, we have the agri and fishery part, and we have the energy and infrastructure part. And if we can address, all these projects through the financing that we just generated, I think we shall see a Gambia, a different Gambia, and a very promising Gambia for that matter.
That was Gambia's Permanent Secretary at the Ministry of Finance and Economic Affairs talking to me earlier. Gambia's Information Minister Demba Jawo has told iAfrica that the recent decision by President Barrow to fly on Brussels airline to attend the just concluded donor conference on the Gambia was a deliberate effort by the Gambian leader to cut costs. Barrow has made several travels, but most of them were on chartered flight. Critics said he flew on a commercial flight to Brussels because he was attending a donor meeting.
No, that is definitely not the case. Maybe we can look at it this way. We have this Brussels airline, which is going from Banjul almost direct to Brussels. Well, it passes through Dakar, but it is at least, but in the other areas, in other countries that we've spoken about, there is hardly any direct flight to them. So, it is difficult as head of state, for him to be kind of transiting in other places as well, But here, when he gets into Banjul, he's not getting down until he reaches Brussels. So it makes it much easier, much easier. That is the reason. why he decided to take this flight to Brussels.
We ask Minister Jawo if President Barrow will from henceforth be expected to continue traveling with chartered flight. This is what he has to say.
So meaning we, from the Brussels one, we are expecting him in most of his traveling with a chartered flight?
Not necessarily, but I can say, I mean, it depends on the place he's going to. If it involves, you know, I mean, changing planes here and there, definitely you don't expect a head of state. That would be extremely, I mean, inconvenient for a head of state to be doing that. That is the reason why, I mean, it's not, sometimes it's much easier to go by charter flight. But if it's a direct flight like this particular one, I can assure you, anytime he's going somewhere else where there is a direct flight from Banjul to that place, he will take it.
Thank you.
That's Gambia's communication minister talking to iAfrica. Corruption is considered a strong constraint on growth and development. The economic literature, however, finds different effects of corruption on economic performance. United Nations Secretary-General Antonio Guterres has been challenging global leaders to take a moral stand to root out corruption and install a culture of integrity from the top to down, saying corruption affects both developed and developing countries.
Corruption affects developed and developing countries alike, and complicity knows no borders. Those who can least afford corruption suffer the most. It cripples economic development, stifles entrepreneurship, and deters investment. Society cannot function equitably and efficiently when public officials, from doctors to police, judges to politicians, enrich themselves rather than perform their duties with integrity. If governments are serious about doing the best for their citizens, then pledges to promote integrity and clamp down on corruption must be more than campaign promises and words on paper. And millions will go to the polls this year with corruption high on their agenda. And I make an urgent call to our global leadership to take a moral stand and install a culture of integrity from the top down. It all begins with setting an example. By tackling corruption, governments can show they mean business.
The head of the UN Office on Drugs and Crime also added his voice at the meeting, saying it was hard to imagine just 15 years ago, historically a very short period of time, there was no global instrument to criminalize corruption, to fight briberies, to recover and return stolen assets. Now nearly every country in the world has corruption offenses in their books.
Nowadays, it is hard to believe just 15 years ago, historically a very short period of time, there was no global instrument to criminalize corruption, to fight briberies, to recover and return stolen assets. Now, nearly every country in the world has corruption offenses in their books. They cooperate and provide mutual legal assistance. Last year, Switzerland returned 3.5 million euros to Tunisia. In December, Switzerland signed an agreement with the Nigerian government to return $321 million. Just two examples that represent only the smallest fraction of the funds lost to corruption, money that could be used to build roads and hospitals, schools, teach children, and enable opportunities. These achievements of the Convention represent solid progress on which we can and must build.
Coming up, South Sudan refugee cries as they demand protection from country's leaders.
We need peace back to our country. We need to go and settle and drink waters in our own country, but not to drink the water of other countries. We need other countries to come and visit us.
Farm Fresh li marché bu nga xam ne la ñun ñépp ko yor képp ku am téléphone am internet rek mun nga faa jëndee ak www.farmfresh.gm mun nga faa tànn jënd lépp li nga bëgg ak yaa xam nduga bi lu munti doon jën nen la légume la ganaar la lépp lu munti doon Farm Fresh buñ la musa jaay dara lu lax lépp luñ la jaay rek lu fresh la may doon te lii yëpp nag si biir réew mii lañ koy liggéeyee li dara gënu koo neex mun ngaa jënd saa yu la neexee ak foo munti nekk ñu indi la ko ba sa buntu kër si njëg bu gën a yomb képp ko bëgg a jokkoo ak ñun 8906 592 wala 677 602.
Chromium Extra Bonanza.
Extra Bonanza.
20 major winners every 20th from February to July.
Chromium 2020. Recharge $100 credit or more to be one of the 20 lucky winners. Every month, 20 winners.
15 winners will get rice, sugar, and cooking oil. There will also be a winner for a refrigerator, win flat screen TV, win a generator, win a motorbike, or an iPhone 6.
Chromium Extra Bonanza. Draw starts 20th of every month. Live on GRTS and Paradise FM. Chromium 2020.
Terms and conditions apply.
Chromium. We are better together.
A representative of South Sudan refugee community in Uganda, Maria Juliet, broke down in tears at her country's peace talks in Ethiopian capital Addis Ababa, pleading for the country's leaders to do more to protect their people. Parties at the peace talks signed recommitments that were reached during church-facilitated intra-South-South talks on security and governance issues. We go on with Maria Juliet, her touching statements, plus others who spoke at the peace talk held in Ethiopian capital Addis Ababa.
I beg you today, the things we are observing here, lead us, united us. We don't need powers. We South Sudanese refugees, we need peace back to our country. We need to go and settle and drink waters in our own country, but not to drink the water of other countries. We need other countries to come and visit us.
Leadership is not looking at yourself. It is looking at the people you lead. It is not your position, but your responsibility. It is not about your reputation, but it's about your character. Can we think about the people in dire need of security and place to call a home?
My message to IGAD is that they should also give space for the South Sudanese to share and talk over issues before just forcing them to do things that may not work.
As African countries continue to place top priority to the health of their citizens and development and expansion of the sector, the government of Ethiopia and the Netherlands signed a 7-year agreement with Royal Philips Company to build Ethiopia's first specialized cardiac care center in the country's capital, Addis Ababa. The €40 million project is expected to complete by mid-2020, with the physical capacity to perform 500 surgeries, 1,600 cath lab diagnoses, and 500 cath lab interventions once operational. The government of Korea and the African Development Bank have issued a joint declaration following the conclusion of the ministerial roundtable of the Korea-African Economic Cooperation Conference, taking place during the African Development Bank's 53rd annual meetings, in which Korea announced a $5 billion bilateral financial assistance package for Africa. The $5 billion financial assistance package will be delivered over 2 years through partnership with various development agencies, including but not limited to the African Development Bank Group. The package leverages resources from various Korean bilateral agencies and platforms, including the Knowledge Sharing Program, the Economic Development Cooperation Fund, Korea Import-Export Bank, among others. Well, viewers, that's all we have for you on The World today. I'm Fatou Jaiteh. Bye for now.